A very good morning. Myself, Dr. M. Gangaraju. I work as a professor and head Department of Pharmacology, Pogaraju Rangaraju College of Pharmacy, Hyderabad. As a part of OER program, the chosen topic is cell signaling. As we know that a cell is considered as a structural and functional unit of the body. But at the end of this session, I am very sure that we'll be very clear about why and how do cells communicate. Before going into the topic, the contents to be discussed are introduction, cell communication, and the methods to communicate. Either they are following the local signaling or long distance signaling, and we'll also see what are the various stages of signaling, finally the summary and the references. Coming to the introduction part, cell, as already mentioned, that it is the structural and the functional unit of the body. And coming to this cell signaling, signaling is always, it is considered as either a mechanical or a biochemical response and can occur either a local or for long distances. As we humans, like how we communicate each other in the society, likewise even cells also communicate each other. A cell communicates with other cells and cells impulses to other parts. Coming to the methods to communicate, communication between the cells is always takes place through the help of the messenger, through the help of the chemical messengers. And any compound which can serve to transmit a message can be called or can be considered as a chemical messenger. The best example which comes under chemical messengers are the first one being the hormones, second one neurotransmitters, and the third one is neuropeptides. And when we come to the first one and the second one, based on the distances, we have a basic difference. Hormones always are meant for long distance communication. But the neurotransmitters, they communicate with adjacent cells. Coming to the third one, that is the neuropeptides, these are proteins. They can act as the hormone or a neurotransmitter. And based on the distance of communication, we can classify the signals as local signaling and the other one is long distance signaling. Coming to the local signaling, in local signaling, the cells are in close contact with each other, and the best examples which comes under local signaling are autocrine signaling, or maybe a paracrine signaling, or even a synaptic signaling. As depicted in this particular picture, autocrine self, once in a particular cell, a chemical mediator is being released. If it is choosing its own receptors on the plasma membrane and trying to alter the activity of its own cell, it is the autocrine. Coming to the paracrine, in the picture itself, adjacent cell, one cell will try to regulate the activity of the adjacent cell, which comes under the paracrine. But if you consider the synaptic signaling, it is nothing but a synapse, even a communication between two neurons, and the junction is known as the synapse. Cells communicate with adjacent cells through gap junctions in animal cells, but in plant cells, the communication is through plasmodesmata. Neighboring cells communicate through the chemical signals within a short distance, and as we already know that the examples are the local signaling. Coming to the next one, that is long distance signaling. This type occurs in long distances as there are no ducts to carry the hormones. The hormones are released into the blood and carried to the target. The best example is nothing but the endocrine signaling. As we know that a hormone is nothing but a chemical messenger, or it can also be considered as a chemical mediator produced by one type of cell. After production, it is released into the blood, but this hormone will try to regulate the activity of the another cell at a different location. So that's why it is the best example for long distance signaling is the endocrine signaling. And coming to the second half of this topic, that is the three stages for cell communication, we identified three. The first one is the reception, second one is the transduction, and the third one is the response. Whether it is a long distance or a short distance, the cell always tries to communicate using these three stages. Coming to the first stage, or this particular slide gives you the diagrammatic representation of stages of cell communication. All the three stages are shown in this particular slide. First one, let me explain the first one, that is the reception. By seeing this picture, you can easily identify that a signal molecule is being produced. It is produced in the extracellular fluid. It will try to occupy its own receptor, and the receptor is located on the plasma membrane of the another cell or an adjacent cell. The occupancy of signal molecule with receptor is known as reception. Once the reception takes place, the next two stages are transduction and response. But the reception takes place at the junction between extracellular fluid and the plasma membrane. But the remaining two phases or the stages, transduction and response, is going to happen within the cell exactly at the plasma membrane or cytoplasm. Coming to the first stage in cell signaling, as already I mentioned that once a chemical molecule is being released, it occupies its own receptor, combines its own receptor. Here the receptor acts as a junction. It is located on the plasma membrane, and so the receptor and the signal molecule fit together. That fitting together or the coupling is known as the reception. Second stage in the cell signaling, once the fitting is over and the carrier molecule, that is nothing but the receptor, it tries to leave the molecule within the cell. So it will try to relay the molecules in the signal transduction pathway, that is known as the second one. And in transduction phase also, the second messengers also play a major role. Coming to the third stage of cell signaling, here the cellular response is activated, and this phase is known as the response. So it can be catalysis, or maybe a gene activation, or maybe a triggering apoptosis, or even some other mechanism might also be involved. These are the three stages of cell signaling. As already I mentioned that irrespective of the distance, either local or long distance, every cell has to communicate through these three phases. Here, this slide will show you about the pathways and the type of response what we get. It is not mandatory that once a molecule occupies its own response, it can produce only one response. Even multiple responses can also be produced. For example, in this slide, you can easily identify pathway leading to a single response. Second consequence or option is pathway branches leading to two responses. And there is one more consequence, crosstalk occurs between two paths, and you can have the response 4 also. And different receptors leads to a different response, that is also maybe one more consequence, that is the fifth response. And coming to the summary of this particular topic, once again I like to give the highlights of this topic. Cell signaling is due to either mechanical or biochemical response. Communication between the cells is through chemical messengers. Based on the distance, signaling may be a local or maybe a long distance signaling. Finally, the reception, transduction, response are the important stages of cell communication. And these are a few references. Thank you so much.